So this demo does assume you already have Microsoft Word installed. If you do not have it installed on your computer, perhaps maybe you're on a different operating system, you can just navigate to the internet, use your, whether it's Chrome, Safari, Microsoft Edge, Firefox. You can just look up Microsoft Word download. Microsoft Word download. And there you could download the software. You actually don't need Microsoft Word for this class because we're going to be looking at Google Docs, which doesn't require a download. But if you are interested in learning this particular software, then of course make sure you download the software first. All right, so if you're on a Microsoft computer, Microsoft operating system, you probably already have Word on there. So I'm going to go ahead and look up Word. Notice this search bar. So that's going to be a common interface element we're going to see a lot. So this search bar allows me to search for files, for software, pretty much anything on my computer. So I typed in Word, and then I can see that there's an app named Word on here. So an application. I'm going to drag this into this window. I have a bunch of screens right now. All right, so I'm gonna create a blank document. That's most typical when you're gonna use. There are templates on Microsoft Word. You can click on more templates as well. But for the most part, we want to create, just a basic document, whether we're writing an essay, right, or writing a letter. This is usually the best place to start. So we're gonna create a new blank document by clicking on blank document. And here you can see now my screen looks a little bit different. I have night mode enabled on my computer. So the page won't actually print out as black, right? But I highly recommend that you use night mode as much as you can on all your devices because it does actually save energy. As we talked about in World of Technology, and we'll continue to talk about that hopefully across the entire term, right? Across all of our lessons, is that using computers does have an environmental footprint. So, one good way to minimize your footprint is actually to use dark mode. It does use less energy. It's also easier on the eyes. Blue light is really bad for your eyes. And computer screens, right? They're very intense with their light. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. So I created a new document. Let's go ahead and write some text. So I'm just going to go on my keyboard and I'm going to put, title of my document. I should probably capitalize. Hit enter. Let's see. Let's say first paragraph. And then let's put some text here. So some text that I like to use that a lot of programmers use as a placeholder is this Latin text, lorem ipsum. It's a dummy text. So I'm just going to copy paste just for the sake of this demo. So I'm going to copy so you can right click copy and then right click paste. If you're a beginner user, by the way, on computers, I highly recommend you get a mouse. I know a lot of laptops have these little track pads, right? The two buttons and like this like touch area. Those are very hard to use. The classic mouse is hard to beat. I'm an advanced computer user. I still, rely on my mouse more than anything. All right, so we got that. So now I have some text. Now let me go ahead and edit that text. Let me add a second paragraph though. Second paragraph. So this is all just dummy text. It doesn't make any sense, right? But we're just learning the software. Not we're not actually writing a real document. All right. So my title of my document. So the first thing I need to do is change the font size. I want this to be really big. So I'm gonna go here and let's go to 24. So that's going to make this a lot bigger. So if you notice when I highlight the text, I get this little mini menu here. Back in the day, this was not a thing. Of course, Word is trying to always make it easier to use their software. So they decided, hey, if a user highlights a text, and remember, I just highlight the text by clicking and holding. A shortcut for highlighting a line of text, if you do a double click, it'll highlight the word. If you do a triple click, it'll highlight the whole line. Something you should definitely be using as much as you can. So I get this mini menu and I can see here font size, font, increase font size. If you hover over these buttons, most softwares will tell you what they do. This is actually called a tooltip, these little messages. I've actually programmed those for different softwares. Um, use this as much as you can, right? Let the software tell you what it does, because software that's written well will try to make it easier for you to learn. Now, of course, this menu is available up here, right? You can see a lot of redundancy. You're gonna be able to do the same thing 100 different ways on a lot of this software. So if I highlight the text, I can also go here and change the values here, make it bigger, smaller, or I can, click through these buttons to make it bigger one step at a time. One really useful thing is the alignment, right? Most titles go in the middle of your document. Right now it's aligned all the way to the left. So I'm gonna hit this center button and boom. Now my text is in the center. So pretty cool. I also have these paragraph headers. I'm gonna make them a little bit bigger. Not as big as my title, but bigger than my regular text. I'm gonna go, there we go. Make sure that they're the same size. So when I click on it, I can see that it's size 16. And here I can see that it's size 16. And notice the most useful menu here is that home menu. Sorry, my camera's in the way, so I kind of got to scoot to the side. But yeah, this home menu has pretty much all the functions that a really beginner user needs. Of course, there's all these other menus, and that's actually one of the complaints I have with Microsoft Word, and it's the reason I prefer Google Docs, especially for beginner users, is that all these menus can feel really overwhelming. You're not going to be using 90% of these features, um, of these settings, of these options, right, of these configurations. But Microsoft Word is powerful because of that, right? It's going to give you a lot more power than Google Docs if you need to do advanced things with your document. But of course, as we'll see with Google Docs, it really does get the job done, and the interface is a lot more user friendly. But anyways, let's continue. So I changed the font size. Let's change the font style. So I'm gonna change the style of my entire font. So this name right here is actually the font style, or we just call it font for short. So I'm gonna change it here in the home menu. I'm gonna click here, and I can choose any font I want. Now, common font. So if I actually type in on my keyboard, I can look up different fonts. So a really common one, especially back in my day, was Times New Roman. That's perfect for professional academic documents. Remember, all the settings here are in the home menu. If you're on a different menu like design, make sure that you go and you click on the home menu. There we go. We will look at some of these other menus, by the way. We're not just going to use home, but just know almost everything's on the home menu. All right, so we have that. Let's go ahead and so we changed the font size, the font style. I can change the font color too. Let's go with, I don't know, red, which is not professional, right? You usually want black and white. So here, go with black. And notice because I'm on night mode, it's not actually black. It looks white, but that's because it's reversing the colors. I just like to have it on night mode again. Saves power, easier on the eyes, etc. If this looks too small for you, you can also zoom in. There's a little zoom bar on the bottom right. You can also go to view, and then you'll see here a zoom. So you can click here, and you can choose a much greater zoom. And now I can see this document way up close, which is probably better, right, for a lot of us watching on YouTube. All right, so next up is going to be to change the page margins. So margins refer to how much space is there between the edge of the page and the text. So I'm going to click on layout. Layout is where all the margins are at. And then here we have page setup. We also have a quick menu here for margins. So normal is usually the one you want to go with, the 1 inch margins all around. That means there's 1 inch at the top, bottom, left, and right between the edge of the paper and the text. But maybe you're creating a flyer, right, and you want more space. You go with narrow. And notice my text it now moved a little bit higher because it was able to take up more space. Maybe you want really wide margins, really, so where your text is a little bit, closer to the center, not as much space. But like I said, the normal's the best one. You can also go to custom margins if you really want to fine tune it, and then you're going to see another menu pop up. Keep in mind all the settings that I'm discussing right here. you can find them via the search bar. Just like your computer has a search bar down here. Well, so does your software here. It also has a search bar. Let me get rid of this. Get it out of the way. So does your software. It has a search bar. So for example, if I want to look up margin, there you go. Change the margins. Page color, huge clue for this exercise for this week, for this lesson. Page color, maybe that's one that you might use. So any setting you can actually find through the search bar. Remember, there's going to be a million ways to find the setting or to, use that feature. It's not just going to be one way only. All right, so we changed the page margins. Let's go ahead and insert an image. So let's say I am on the internet and I want to add, I don't know, let's put a potato. Images, potato. Keep in mind when you're Googling for images, this image here on the left is actually small. It's always a good idea to click on the image and to see the full size one here on the right. So if you right click, remember, beginner users, if you're on the mouse, it's the right click. If you're on the trackpad, it's a little bit different. I'll definitely I'll link some videos this week for people who are just getting used to the computer. But yeah, right click is a powerful, powerful feature. If you right click on most softwares, it's going to give you different menus. If you're on Google, for example, let me see if I can. There we go. If you're on Google, for example, it's going to open up a bunch of different menus here. So the right click, when in doubt, if you're lost on a certain software, try right clicking and see what pops up. So here I can copy the image and then I can go here to Google Docs and I'm going to click where I want to paste the image. So I have to aim, right? I have to tell the computer where I'm aiming. So that flashing cursor on Word Docs or on Microsoft Word, sorry, is telling you where you're currently aiming your mouse at, your text at, etc. So I'm gonna hit enter on my keyboard a couple times, just give some space, and then I'm gonna right click, and you see here the paste. That's how I'm gonna add the image. So there's a couple different options. I'm just gonna go with, I don't know, the first one. And there you go. So now I have a picture of a potato in my document. I can make it smaller using these corners, or I can mess with the original ratio, which you usually don't want to do. I usually want to keep it the same shape, so I always go with the corners. And I could do the same thing with this image that I might do with other text. So for example, let's say I want to center it. Let me go here on my home tab, and then I just click center, align, and there you go. I could also right align, left align, or center. If you're wondering what this other alignment does, this justify, best way to find out is click on it. And you'll notice justify does something that a lot of newspapers do. It makes it look really neat. So to actually stretch out the words so that it creates like these really nice blocks. So it's not as kind of random where it ends with the regular alignments. But for the most part, professional documents use just left alignment. There are languages where they might do right alignment. In fact, there are languages where you read from right to left. So that's where maybe different alignments might come in. It really depends, right, on what you're trying to do. All right, so I inserted an image. You can insert all sorts of things. If you go to the insert menu, see, there it is. You can see there's a bunch of options. I'm not going to go over all of them because it's just way too much. But what I am going to show you is how to insert a link. So you notice there is a link button here. But first we need to actually have a link, right? To actually put inside of our text. So let's go with the home page for the class. So let's go dashboard, courses. You can see I have a lot of courses here. I'm going to actually put a link to our class homepage in this document. So I'm going to copy this link. You could do the right click, right? Or you could there is a shortcut for it, which we'll cover that maybe later in the class. But yeah, make sure you copy it. Reminder, if you want to copy it, you can right click, copy. Okay, so I want to put the link in my document. I could just paste it. Now that link's going to look a little bit ugly. And notice once I hit enter, this link will change color. This is letting me know I can click on it. So if I hold the control button and then click on it, it's going to actually open the class homepage. Now, this is not the way you want to insert links into your documents. This is a big no-no. Why is it a bad thing? Because there are people who have accessibility software that they use. Maybe they have software that reads the screen, right? Reads the text on the screen. Maybe they have difficulty seeing, right, the text, so they have to listen to the text. So that's called screen reading software, right? It's an accessibility software. When you put a link like this, it's going to read every single character in that link. And some of these links can be massive. So if you want to properly insert a link, not just so that visually looks better, but also, again, for accessibility purposes, that it's more accessible to certain users, we're going to insert this link inside some text. So we're going to put course homepage for CIS 101. So this is a lot more readable, a lot more descriptive, but how do I make this a link? It's very simple. You can just right click and you can hit link. And then here it's asking you, what address do you want to link this to? You can actually link it to different parts of the document, or in our case, we're going to link it to a web page. So I hit enter. So now when I control and click, still does the same thing. It's going to take me to the class homepage. So really, really useful. You're going to see that in a lot of the homework assignments I have. If you notice that there's a link there, I actually did this insert a link kind of option. Another way to do it, of course, right, is in the insert menu. You click link, it's going to pull up the same menu. Different ways to do the same thing. All right, so let's go ahead and continue. We're almost done. We're going to add headings. So notice I have a title of my document. I have these headers for the paragraphs. You can actually create a table of contents. Maybe you've looked through an online textbook before and has a nice little table of contents. You can actually create one on your own. So first you're going to go back to the home. So the home tab there. And notice these styles here. These are actually the different styles that you can use throughout your document to create a table of contents. So if I click on this style menu here, so this little icon here, I can see different options. So here, for example, I can make this a title. Now it is going to change the style here, which is not always ideal. So let's see. Yeah, you'd have to change the styles back. So usually you want to do this table of contents first. You can apply the style. You can create the style first. You can get rid of the formatting as well. There's different ways to do it. We'll save that for Google Docs though. Just know if I click title, now I'm going to have this table of contents in my document. But before I actually look at that table of contents, let's make these headers as well. So I'm going to make this a heading and this a heading. So this, even though we haven't seen it yet, has created a table of contents for my document. All right, so now that we have these headers, how do we actually see that table of contents? Well, you'll go to view. Whoops, not sure what happened there. Go to view, and then there's this navigation pane. You're gonna check that on. And notice the title doesn't show up because title is not usually part of the table of contents, but the first and second paragraph are there. So when I click on these, it'll actually take me straight there. So say I had like a bunch of pages in between, right? Let's say second paragraph was on page 8 and first paragraph was on page 1. This table of contents makes it really quick for me to navigate the document and go to the parts that are important for me. So if you're creating a guide, for example, this table of contents could be hugely useful for your users, for your viewers. So yeah, very, very useful skill. We'll show you how to do that as well once we get to Google Docs in the next demo. But yeah, that is Microsoft Word. We do have one more thing to do, and that's save the file. So it's very simple to save the file. There is a save button up here. Remember the floppy disk that I discussed before when we're talking about history of computers? Well, if you click on this floppy disk, it'll ask you to save the file. So I'll ask you to give you a name to the document. Notice it's going to save it as docx and it tells you where to save it. All right, so a lot of these Microsoft computers will try to get you to use OneDrive. OneDrive is a cloud drive, which we're going to cover more later on in this lesson. Do not use OneDrive. Use Documents. If you have another folder you like downloads, for sure you can go with downloads as well. Go with documents though, because that's typically where you would save your documents. Do not use OneDrive on Microsoft. I prefer Google Drive. If you really, really want to use OneDrive, you can absolutely get more familiar with it. We're going to cover how to learn things on the internet in a later lesson. Excuse me. Um, but for now, I'm just going to steer you away from OneDrive. I don't like the interface. It's too clunky, too difficult to use. I'm going to recommend that you use other software for those same features. So for now, make sure you're not using OneDrive. Just go through regular old files here. And we're going to talk about how to find those files in greater detail in some of the next lessons and also in the different sections of this same lesson. All right, so I'm going to go with documents. I'm going to name it example doc. Okay, that looks good. And then that's it. Just going to hit save. So now, if I go to my files folder, I can find this. So where are my files at? Where if I'm on Microsoft Word, it's called File Explorer. Here's where all my files are at. If you're on Mac OS, it's called Finder. You can actually look up with the search bar. You can actually find the document as long as you remember the name. So example doc, and there you go. Even though I closed it, it's still there and it's saved. So now I can upload this document as long as I find it. Another way to get there right is going to be through this file management app, this File Explorer that it's called in Microsoft computers. So here we see example doc in my recent documents, or if I click on documents, you'll see example doc there. So we'll go in greater detail once we get to file management section in this lesson. But for now, we've learned everything we need to know when it comes to Microsoft Word. Some of the settings I didn't show you for this week's practice assignment, but remember, on most softwares these days, let's go to Word. If there's a setting you need to find, use the search bar. I don't know, for example, spelling. There you go. If I want to spell check my document, I have a lot of these little red lines are telling me, hey, something seems spelled wrong. Well, that's because it's in Latin. It's in a different language. So maybe I want to change the language of the document. Oh, there you go. I can change the language via the language options. So any feature, any setting that you want to find, just use a search bar. You don't have to become an expert on the interface, right? Because everyone knows how to use the search bar. You just have to type something in and see what pops out. All right, so that's it for this demo. Next up, we'll be covering another software and my personal favorite, Google Docs.